What's up, guys? I'm Chad Barnes, and welcome to the channel. Here, it's all about real car talk, from simple fixes to smart driving tips and keeping your ride in top shape. If that sounds good to you, go ahead and give the video a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button and make sure you watch all the way through. There's a lot of good stuff coming. Let's get to it.
Material in principle. All Volkswagen commercial vehicles are characterized by considerable endurance. It is not without reason that in Russia, in addition to the standard 2-year factory warranty, the brand provides 2 additional years of post-warranty service support with exactly the same scope of warranty obligations as under the factory warranty. 2 years of warranty is valid without mileage limitation, and starting from the 3rd year certain restrictions come into force. 4 passenger models, multi-van, California, Amarok, Caddy. The mileage limit is 150,000 kilometers, and for commercial models, Transporter, Caravelle, Caddy, and Crafter, 250,000. And it's about the status and positioning of the model, not about how exactly you use it. You can buy multi-van and use it quite commercially as a hotel shuttle, but the car will be considered a passenger car and transporter. Purchased by the owner of a large family for trips to the countryside, will still be considered commercial. In general, from the point of view of warranty conditions, a private person who preferred the practicality of the VW Caravelle to the abundance of comfortable options, VW Multi-Van is a clear winner. But any warranty agreement clearly states that it is valid only if the car was serviced at an official authorized service station, and the detected malfunctions were not caused by external reasons. In a word, if some part or assembly unit failed due to a factory defect or assembly error, it is subject to free replacement, but if the cause of malfunction was something else, you will still have to pay for repair. But even here, everything is not so terrible. Further, we will try to show that servicing at authorized service stations is also quite profitable from the point of view of finances. How does the maintenance process itself take place at service stations? Everything starts with the initial interactive acceptance. The master consultant checks the lighting, exterior and interior, the condition of windshield wipers, washers, seatbelts, conducts a visual inspection of the body for scratches and dents. All this happens in the presence of the owner. Then the car goes to the shop, and the mechanic starts working with it. Everything starts with the inspection of the underhood space. First of all, technical fluids are checked: brake, cooling, hydraulic fluid. The last check is carried out only if the model is equipped with power steering. A number of models are equipped with EPS, and, of course, in this case there is no need in such a check. The condition of all pipes is checked. They must be in their places, all clamps are snapped, clamps are tightened. The next very important point is to check the condition of the timing belt. To do this, the front cover is removed and the belt itself is inspected. It is very important to see the presence of cracks or wear in time, because the work to replace the belt costs 9120 rubles, with the replacement of 2 rollers, guide and tension roller. It is not recommended to change only the belt, plus the belt kit, the belt itself, rollers, and disposable fasteners, 21,974 rubles. Yes, not so little, but a neglected problem with the belt, which ended with its breakage, is likely to result in the need to spend 600 to 700,000 rubles. Alas, all engines, which are equipped with commercial vehicles Volkswagen, are yoke, and after the belt breakage with a motor, happens a complete Stalingrad. But in many cases, replacement can be carried out under warranty. The reason for such replacement may be increased noise, getting working fluids, engine oil or antifreeze, on the belt when the seals are not tight due to a factory defect, and premature wear when cracks appear at the base of the belt tooth before the scheduled replacement life expires. In addition to the belt itself, the mechanic should always check for leaks from under the camshaft and crankshaft oil seals. If there is a leak, the oil seal must be replaced. The oil seals themselves are relatively cheap parts. The camshaft oil seal costs 2,371 rubles, and the crankshaft, 7,401 rubles. However, the work to replace the crankshaft oil seal costs quite appreciable 28,120 rubles. And if it came to the necessity of such works, you will probably have to change the timing belt. But, as it was already mentioned, with a high probability such works will be performed under warranty, and if the warranty period has expired, these expenses are quite justified, because the price of the consequences of the timing belt breakage will be an order of magnitude higher. And then the car takes a place on the elevator. The first thing to check is the condition of guards and dust covers. First you need to remove the standard engine protection. It is very strong and perfectly protects the engine compartment from below, although it is not made of metal, but of thick plastic. By the way, Volkswagen engineers do not recommend installing non-original metal protection. The right side of the engine such protection does not cover, because of which dirt easily gets on the drive belt of the generator and pump, which often leads to its breakage. But the original protection perfectly covers the whole cavity, and dirt practically does not get there, if, of course, not to use all-wheel drive versions of minibuses as off-roaders and not to storm deep Fords. Then the condition of the side box dust covers is checked. For example, the right side box protects the air conditioning or climate control tubes. If these dust covers are damaged, dirt flies onto the tubes, corrosion begins, which can eventually lead to loss of performance of these systems and costly repairs. In the past, it was not uncommon for the lower front corner of this dust cover to be damaged, but now it has been reinforced with metal and the problem is no longer acute. Removing the guard opens access to the outer and inner dust covers of the drives. If the damage is detected in time, it is possible to save very significant sums of money by preventing damage to the ball and socket joints themselves. If the dust cover has a factory defect, it will be replaced under the warranty, but if it is damaged by a foreign object, a stone, a limb or iron lying on the road, and all this is not so rare on our roads, this case will no longer be considered a warranty, and the owner will have to pay for replacement himself. The cost of replacing the dust cover will be 7,218 rubles, 2,658 rubles dust cover itself plus 4,560 rubles, work. But if you continue to drive with a torn dust cover, you can drive to the moment when the ball joint itself will rumble, and then the price of treatment will be many times higher, and to be more precise, it will be 40,803 rubles, 35,484 rubles for the part and 5320 rubles for the work. But if for a particular model are not supplied separately pins and drive shaft, but only the entire drive assembly with 2 pins, then the repair will cost an even larger amount, namely 79,903 rubles together with the work, and it will be especially frustrating. Because the inner dust covers of the pins, as well as the pins themselves, are damaged very rarely, because they are located in a well-protected place. Absolutely similar situation is observed with the dust covers of the steering mechanism. The steering rack itself does not require maintenance, but each time you check the condition of steering link dust covers or each time you drive the steering rack, it is necessary to check the condition of the dust covers of the steering rods. If these dust covers are damaged by foreign objects, moisture gets into the steering rack mechanism, which leads to its failure. Alas, the rack itself is unrepairable, only its replacement is possible, and it costs 197,471 rubles, together with all works, including adaptation of electric booster and check of steering linkage with adjustment, at the cost of one dust cover 1856 rubles and all works. On replacement of dust covers on both sides 8,360 rubles. So it is obviously better to check everything in advance and, maybe, to change the dust covers prophylactically in case of any doubts, than to change the unit later, waging a fierce struggle with a domestic amphibian of the type towed. That is why checking of steering rods and lugs is included in the list of obligatory works at each maintenance service. Another important element of the preventive inspection is to check the support bearings. This is done in the following way: start the car and start turning the steering wheel. If there is a malfunction, it manifests itself depending on the degree of damage in quite different ways. First, clicks are heard, and secondly, when one person turns the steering wheel, and the second puts his hand on the spring of the shock absorber, then there are felt shocks. These faults are identified quite easily, but Volkswagen experts do not recommend that unskilled and inexperienced mechanics should be engaged in the repair of support bearings. It is good if only the detail will damage, but they can also damage the arm and head. Malfunctions of this kind cannot be called very common, but still specialists have to face them quite regularly. Everything depends on where and on what roads to drive on. If the car is operated mainly on good asphalt, then problems with bearings, as a rule, do not arise, but good asphalt we have, alas, not everywhere. In any case, if there was no mechanical damage and other external influences, everything is eliminated within the warranty. The brake system requires timely replacement of pads and discs. Inspection of brake mechanisms is included in the warranty tour and their cleaning is paid additionally. As for shock absorbers, the specialists of the brand could not recall a single case of replacement of at least one shock absorber under warranty. The unit turned out to be very reliable, and there are almost never any problems with it. The most important thing is to look after the condition of dust covers, so that after driving off-road there was no dirt on them. Stabilizer bushings usually require replacement at mileage over 100,000 kilometers. Of course, it depends on what roads to drive on. Closer to this figure, knocking may appear, which still has no effect on safety. Checking stabilizer bars is not mandatory, however, it is better to include it in the list of additional operations. Well, just in case, because cases, as you know, they are different. If the problems began during the 4-year warranty period, the replacement will be made at the expense of warranty obligations. But you cannot worry about the condition of the silent blocks of the levers. Problems with them occur only in the collection armored vehicles, the mass of which is at the upper limit of permissible. The company specialists strongly recommend that every time to add additional inspection work, which includes checking all hinge joints and assemblies. And the purpose of this recommendation is not to divvy up the client for additional expenses, but, on the contrary, to exclude subsequent expensive repairs. And finally, the mandatory elements of each maintenance: oil and filter replacement. The procedure of oil filter replacement looks somewhat different in different models. In some models the replacement is made from the top, from under the hood, in some, as in Caravelle, from the bottom. The set of components for maintenance includes filters, oil itself and a disposable plug. And here it is very important to understand why you should buy all these materials from the dealer, and not try to save money by buying them in a retail network or large online stores. The fact is that there are a lot of counterfeits on sale now. Brands are trying to fight this phenomenon, but this fight is very hard. Outwardly, counterfeit products are so similar to the original that the average person is almost unable to determine for himself what he is holding in his hands, a counterfeit or really original. The main protection of original spare parts is a QR code and a unique number. This code can be entered into a special program, and if it is entered more than once, it is very likely that it is a counterfeit. But it often happens that a client, who has purchased a spare part in one of the large online stores, sees that this number has already been entered, and not once or twice, but 200 to 300 more times. That is, he has bought 100% counterfeit, although the packages themselves are of such high quality that even brand experts cannot distinguish them at a glance. It is clear that the effectiveness of the filter of an unknown manufacturer may be insufficient, and this can be a prerequisite for very serious consequences. And after all, the share of counterfeit on the shelves of quite solid networks, as studies show, can reach up to 40%. In addition, the company strongly recommends to use original oil for replacement, and not quite high quality, at first glance, products of even the most famous brands. Because these oils may be even better in some individual parameters, but it is the original oil has a set of additives that is perfectly optimized for the work of the electronic engine management system Volkswagen. In addition to the engine, there are 2 other components in Volkswagen commercial vehicles that require periodic oil changes. First, it is the gearbox, and this is especially true for robotized DSG boxes with a wet clutch. It should be said that so far the popular opinion about the unreliability of these boxes is not grounded in anything. Experts of the brand simply could not recall a single case of appeal for warranty repair or replacement of these units in recent years. However, the factory regulations provide for oil replacement every 60,000 kilometers, and if the oil is not changed in time, the owner may face premature wear of the clutch, and this is a prerequisite for serious expenses. Well, in case of all-wheel drive versions, it is necessary to periodically change oil in the Haldex clutch, which is a part of the all-wheel drive system. The factory regulations prescribe to do it once in 3 years, but technical experts of the Russian division of the brand strongly advise to do this operation by mileage, simultaneously with the change of oil in the gearbox, that is every 60,000 kilometers. To summarize, we can say a simple and kind of obvious thing: regular, timely, and correctly performed maintenance is the main guarantee of the technical health and longevity of the car. Saving money here can turn into very serious problems. As they say, any crookedness leads to a crookedness. So, is it impossible to save on maintenance at all? Not at all. To save not only can be, but also necessary. Now the brand Volkswagen Commercial Vehicles offers a program that involves 2 prepaid tours. Basically, the first 2 tours in today's prices cost about 57,000 rubles. But if you buy this package immediately, when buying a car, it will cost 39,900 rubles. This, firstly, means a significant saving, and secondly, a certain insurance against any price fluctuations associated with changes in exchange rates. At the moment, the program is valid for the T6.1 model, but the time when this option will be presented for the whole model range is not far off. The brand also plans to develop a program for the sale of 2 prepaid door for used cars. More information about the service program is at link. In conclusion, Volkswagen Service for commercial vehicles emphasizes proactive maintenance and timely interventions to prevent issues before they arise. By prioritizing regular checkups and utilizing advanced diagnostic tools, businesses can ensure their vehicles remain reliable and efficient. This approach not only minimizes downtime but also enhances overall productivity. Remember, staying ahead of potential problems is key to maximizing the lifespan and performance of your fleet. Thank you for watching, and we hope you found this insight into Volkswagen Service valuable for your commercial vehicle needs.